More than friends, less than lovers, pals. Oh, yeah.
Hey there, pals. This week's episode covers topics related to mental health, in particular, eating disorders.
That said, do us a favor and prioritize your well-being in choosing whether or not to engage with this week's episode.
We're going to have resources in the bio with more information, and truly just can't stress enough just how not alone you are.
Bye!
That was our first content warning.
We did it! If you were wondering what that is,
Breathwork credits to
Dochi. I watched a video of her prepping for her Grammy performance, and she all of a sudden just started talking about her show methods, and she does a lot of meditating.
Yeah, one thing about the pals, when Dochi speaks, we listen and we take notes. Whatever she's doing.
And I'll give that a try.
Yeah, I'll probably be.
I'll see what that does for me, and it feels good. I don't know if you did it. Again, if you're driving, don't
we didn't
close your eyes and do
explain
that.
it. We just kind of jumped into it.
What we were doing, if you're listening, was kind of grabbing and pulling out of our chests and kind of just pulling, almost like a thread. You know, like you're pulling it out and then you're releasing it. And she said that on the third one, she imagines like kind of all the negativity and the like self-doubt, gathering it all up and just getting rid of it because it doesn't serve her. It's just noise.
Yeah. We wanted to, just get into settle into a comfy mind space. Sorry, the pathos
the pathos is, guys, she has been in prison for a week. I haven't taken her out of here, and she looks amazing.
She really
I
looks
don't think
good.
she likes the sunlight.
She's a little indoor girl. She's a city girl.
Yeah, she really is. And city girl's up. That's why Kermit's up. Kermit is a city girl at the end of the day. We have to face that.
Let's be clear about
one thing about
that
Kermit,
from
he's
the
a
jump.
city girl.
Yeah. He runs these streets.
So we wanted to get us into the right mindset because we have, I think since the beginning of this podcast, kind of alluded to that we have a history.
That there's a little bit of lore
to the pals that kind of, because the question that we get often when it comes to this is kind of, or even just when people meet us, they're kind of like, whoa.
How did this happen?
You guys are kind of at an interesting level. I'm not going to say even good or bad, just a level that we haven't seen.
Not good or bad.
Guys, we can't go into it now.
No, we can't go into it now, but Maddie and I did.
We saw a psychic. It was for research, believe it or not.
And we didn't find her Yelp until she was walking up to us as we were sitting outside her office. It was for research purposes, truly.
It actually was, but a blast.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that at another time.
She did refer to our relationship as neither good nor bad.
But I think because she knew
confused.
we were going to talk about her, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I think she was like, shut it down.
Horrible Yelp reviews. Just awful.
Insane.
People have lost everything
Thousands.
to this woman.
She is good at what she does. Anyway, we have been kind of alluding to that there's a part of the pals lore that kind of makes this what it is, which is kind of like two people who have a pretty deep understanding as well as a sincere trust in each other in ways beyond just like this.
Yeah. If I heard Maddie's voice 20 feet in front of me say trust fall, I would instantly fall backwards because I'd be like, she's probably there. I'm probably just hearing it wrong.
Wait, if I'm in front of you or behind you?
Yeah, I'm saying you're so far ahead of me. If I heard you from the distance say trust fall, I would instantly trust fall right there because I'd be like, she's probably behind me. I just didn't even realize it.
I have to circle back.
No, you wouldn't have to. I'm just saying if you did, I would trust you.
But I want you to fall.
You wouldn't.
You
wouldn't. But
am I saying it to somebody else, or am I actually meaning it to you?
No, you're not meaning. I'm just. It was an
I
example.
would never gag you like that.
No,
I wouldn't say trust fall, hoping you would trust me, and then watching you fall.
I'm saying in this hypothetical situation.
Where are we, in a mall?
We're in a field. The grass is soft.
Okay.
You know, we're fine. We're in like the clearing in Twilight where Robert and Bella hang out.
Got it. Is that where they hang out? I haven't seen Twilight.
No,
Do
they just hang out. No, they just chat. They just chat. And then I think a battle happens there at some point too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Pre-battle though, field.
Yeah.
And you're falling because what?
Because you said trustful.
But in your mind, am I actually behind you?
in my mind, even if your voice was coming from far away, I would instantly fall because I'd be like, whatever I'm hearing probably isn't even it. Her voice is probably true.
So you are thinking that I'm behind you.
Yes.
Yeah.
In that moment because you
but
say
that's what
so.
I'm saying. Don't, because I'm going to be sad if I'm not behind you.
But you wouldn't yell trust fall if you weren't behind
So the
me.
scenario would never happen.
Hey, guys. That scenario would never happen.
Can I
but
say,
the bottom
though,
line is we trust each
I
other.
never felt like my hands were off the reins in that conversation. We were getting
No,
there.
we were bouncing.
We were figuring it out.
Horses were going.
We were on a journey, and at the end was the answer. And we got there. Scenario never going to happen. But there is a reason, a few, that you and I behave the way that we do.
One, because I think we have similar, something in our core is very similar. We don't necessarily know what it is, but there is a very similar piece at the core of both of us.
We didn't need
But
this
then there's-
thing
yeah.
to be what we are, but I definitely think it enriched it.
Thank you. Okay, hold on. Here's what we're saying. Today's episode is going to be a lore drop. It's going to be actually a lore bomb, if you will. No, it's not breaking news. We've alluded to a situation in the past where I was not present for a period of time in our 5.5 years of living in Los Angeles. And today we're going to tell you about it.
And we already gave a trigger warning up front.
Yeah.
I know that I slapped that at the beginning. So you're aware.
We probably did a fantastic job.
I'm sure it was really
giving you
professional.
content warnings. I have full faith in our future
that
selves
it
who are
made
going to
sense
film
and
that.
we covered all the bases.
I'm really excited to see what they come up with.
Whatever we do, good on you.
But we are going to be talking about eating disorders primarily. Spoiler alert, guess if you were guessing which one it was me. So we are going to be talking about topics like that. And as somebody who has struggled with those things in the past and gone through those seasons mentally, or seasons like it as well, just with mental illness, I understand the propensity and almost the slight hunger in yourself to seek out the media where you are feeling represented. But sometimes there is that twinge of it of oh, and maybe this will trigger me and I kind of want it to in a weird way. And I'm talking to the people who have dealt with this. If you're listening to this and you're like, I don't get it, that's awesome. I love that for you. Seriously, that rocks. Keep it up.
Also, I do think that this is, and the whole kind of angle that we are taking on this situation is because you've talked about this a lot in the past, at different, you just did a Zoom, with your former facility
webinar,
which was very cool and informative. But this is also for pals. You, even if you don't right now, you might someday have a pal that is going through something like this or something similar to this. There's gonna be a lot of similar themes of addiction that I think are pretty universal to people. And so take note of that too. Even if you feel like this isn't you aren't going through that, you might go through this.
There's relatability in that. Everybody, it's more so, I would say the story is friendship.
The story,
and and
it's always gonna be.
It was friendship.
It is. That is our version of it, though. Of what we hope you guys are learning from this, which is learning how to be in a dynamic when a friend is going through a mental health situation.
Yes, but also, we at this point, I made a promise to a therapist in college. Okay, I've talked about her before. Hi, Emily. I love you. I made a promise to a therapist in college who knew I was going to be moving out to Los Angeles and knew that I wanted to do comedy, writing, things of that sort. And she had asked me to promise her that I wouldn't do work publicly or be making jokes about it unless I was through it on the other side. So we now are in retrospect. I spent 6 weeks in a residential treatment facility for an eating disorder back in 2019. And ever since then, I haven't gone back. And we're doing great. So when we are speaking about this, we are both also us. So there is a lot of, we are finding the humor in it now, especially looking back, because it was still us two in this situation, a very different me, but it was the first time I think in our relationship that we really it was a really big test. And not even, but it wasn't going into it. It wasn't a test. It was more so just proof of and
this is, you and I started this, we've been kind of having this discussion since we started this podcast of wanting to approach this topic because we do feel like we were in a very unique situation to be able to speak on this topic. But I think we really, really started kind of breaking down the history of it yesterday as we were prepping for this. And it was kind of the first time you and I really got to talk about it. I mean, we've talked about it here and there, but I think getting to fully go through
dive
it all
into
and
the story of
kind
it.
of digest what we were going through at that time mentally was really interesting, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to like share that and hope other people can relate to that.
Yeah. And so we're just going to talk about kind of like that experience and going through it.
Yeah.
And we have also discussed that this story, the overarching story, is a little bit maybe like a 2-3 parter in total, but we're going to listen, guys.
So just know the story doesn't end at the end of this episode. We will be doing another episode. Maybe
Believe it or
two more.
not, things get crazier.
So stay tuned for that. This will end on a hopeful though,
Yes.
so don't feel like
We're
it's
also
gonna
not
end
trying
sad.
to clickbait you
No,
or cliffhanger
We're
you
probably
with.
gonna take a break
Yeah.
after this episode in terms of
Yeah.
like a fun episode, and then
Yeah.
maybe resume.
Listen, guys, we're going to have our board game episode coming up sooner or later.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, guys, we're going to have fun
It'll
after
be
this.
fun.
Don't worry. If you're like, oh, I wanted to have fun today.
There's gonna
I wanted to have a
be
good time.
fun in this.
Guys, there's going to be fun in
But
this.
these
Because
are the
look at
things
this.
we have to get through our
Yes.
content warnings
Yeah,
to
yeah,
start.
so
Well,
sorry.
the last few bullets that we need to get through here at the top, just things to keep in mind as we're having this conversation, is the one that you and I kind of lived through it. We are choosing to look back on it with humor and a levity, and we are not trying to upset anybody with that. Like,
Yeah.
this is something we went through that was very real for us at that time, but also that is how we got through it at that
Yeah.
time, was like laughing about it. So please don't like take offense to it. That's just
But
the fun of
also,
it.
though, I will say there is such a like specific so long that I didn't talk about this, that I was just brewing on these ridiculous experiences that like my friends that I met in treatment or have met in support groups throughout, like the senses, like the comedy is so
Yeah.
critical
Yeah.
in those rooms. Like
To
I was
keep
in
it afloat.
I was in a support group in college, but like that room, just having a group of people that you could also laugh with, like,
Yeah.
let's be clear, our intention, and also I think we're pretty good at not saying anything that is going to actually be harmful. But if you are in a place where you even are like questioning, maybe this wouldn't be great for me to hear, hey pal, maybe just like
Maybe not
wait
this
a
episode.
minute.
Maybe seek
or
it out
watch
later.
it with a pal.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
And then the other points that we just wanted to say up top is, if you are a minor, please like just seek an adult's help. Like, reach out to adults. This
Yes.
is not like this. The dynamic that you and I ended up having was very unique to our situation, because one, I was kind of at a place to be able to take on that at that time. So we are not saying like take on more than you can. I think caretaking can be a really slippery slope, because it's so loving and it's so good in intent, but I think it can very quickly get out of control if you're not watching it. And I think that you and I were uniquely set up
Yeah.
to, and caretaking is such like a serious word. It was not like caretaking, but like being a pal and like having that dynamic.
A support person.
A support person is, do that at your own discretion. Be really honest with yourself of like, this is what I can do for my pal, and this is what I'm joyfully going to do for them, but maybe I can't do, this extent of it.
So whether you're the pal that went through it or is in the trenches, or the pal that is standing alongside watching and wondering what on earth
What do I do now?
well, things
Yeah.
are feeling like they're a little out of control
And
here.
that's kind of our goal today too, is like,
Yeah.
hopefully we can give some answers to that.
Yeah.
So I think we should just
And-
dive in.
Well, also I will say this week is when this episode is coming out, this is the National Eating Disorder Awareness Week. It's NEDA week. And so we thought it was just like honestly an appropriate excuse.
Yeah.
We had kind of been like waiting for it, and we knew we wanted to do it, and then I had done some stuff with the treatment center I worked with and done like some blog writing, and I think like in doing that I was kind of like, oh, this
It
is
kind of reminded you of
yeah,
that.
it was a great excuse
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
get to be able to get back into
Yeah.
it. So yeah, let's dive in, guys.
Let's start at the top, which is,
Welcome to the lore drop.
we met in, and this part will be, fairly quick, but we met in college.
Mm-hmm.
We met at a time that we had about half a year of classes together, where we only kind of had classes together, but we didn't super hang out. We spent LA in the summer together. We spent the summer in LA together, and we kind of got closer because of that. And I think that's when you and I
we
really
weren't living
decided-
together. We were
not
both doing
living
separate
together.
internships, like different times.
And I think we've talked about this
Yeah.
in our history of living episode. But
history of living episode is so fun. Living with pals.
we'll probably do another
The
one. At some
history
point.
of
We'll
life.
have more as
Yeah.
we continue, as we
Yeah.
build towards the duplex. But basically, we had gotten to a point our senior year of college where we were hanging out every day. We were hanging out every day, and like because
doing projects together, because even if we didn't have a class together, we would end up just being
We
going to the professor and
convinced-
being like,
we both had the same class, but not at the same time. So like it was the same curriculum, and we were supposed to be doing group projects in these classes, like with partners or like in trios. And we both convinced him that our schedules were so busy that we needed to. they weren't, that we needed to do the projects together because the only free time we had was when we were together. And so we were like, well, we have to make these. And then we proceeded to make the most offensive to a teacher who is a doctor videos, which he didn't know how to color
That makes
balance
it sound
a
like these
camera.
were like anti-vax videos. No,
No.
It was
As in, guys, we made videos about these guys. We had stuffed dinosaurs that we gave a dramatic backstory to. It was fun. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Also, you'll understand why this dinosaur is sitting between us.
It'll make
soon,
sense.
too. This is Mr. Dino.
Mr. Dino, and he was with us in college.
He was.
a gift to me.
Wow.
From an ex-boyfriend, and we love him.
Now he sleeps
the
with me every night.
Dino, yes, that's special. We like to share. But we are in college. We had gotten to a point again at this point where we've spent basically every day and I want to say this is around October.
Mm-hmm. Halloween
you know
was
how
when we ramped
Halloween
up.
was. This kind of was the first Halloween where you and I were really doing.
We bobbed for apples that
We did
year.
3. Yeah,
That's
like
how
for
into
nobody.
Halloween we were.
There was
we
like
did it in a
nobody
living
there.
room. We filled a bucket with
With us and
water and
Thomas?
bobbed for apples.
I think during SNL.
Probably.
Anyway, it
wasn't a huge
we were
party
close.
school.
And this was Millicent. I already knew you were going to therapy, and Millicent had already told me a little bit about that, like in a just kind of.
I also
like,
had some friends that like we vaguely were in a group project together in some classes that like, and they all knew like whatever, but
and so I remember Millicent choosing to tell me.
And I had forgotten about this first moment until Maddie said it, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, that is
Yesterday,
how I told you I had an eating disorder."
I was like, "Well, we all remember how and when and where and I guess how you told me."
Yeah.
And Millicent was like, "I don't remember." I was like, "I do." Would you like to tell it?
I feel like it's from your well, okay, from my perspective, I was about a year and a half into hardcore like eating disorder problems. Okay, and it had blended from behavior to behavior, but I had found an awesome therapist at the college, and then also that therapist led a support group that was like eating disorder, like an eating disorder support group, which
Amazing,
absolutely incredible. And
Yeah.
if you were in college, truly check out your school's
and if
mental
you're
health.
curious about it, that's what college is for. Just
Yes.
check it out. It's free.
It's
Oh
free.
my
That's
gosh,
the biggest
use
thing.
it.
If you have any, also all of this happened when I went into treatment under 26. Keep that in mind. It's a different ball game when you're under 26. So I think that is also a really big reason to like, if you have the opportunity
about it, start
looking
researching
while
it
you're under
now.
26 if you can, and if you can't, start looking anyways.
You start just doing it. But
So I was already into this, but so much of my like college experience, unfortunately, I do look back on, and it was me having to like hide so much that was happening mentally, and also the ways that it was manifesting physically. And it was so all consuming, and there is such an element to eating disorders, especially bulimia, where it's like, hey, I'm going to be dipping out every once in a while, and it feels like there's this constant game that I'm having to play of hiding from people. And
we had kind of gotten to a point where we knew that we were going to be living in LA together.
yes.
And so I think when you approached me about it, I
knew I wanted to tell you. I knew I needed to tell you because I think my therapist had actually said
You should pick
you
somebody.
should tell Maddie if you're going to be living with her and you already like spend all this
Yeah.
time with her, you need to tell her just so that like, you know, having that
we were.
support.
I think it was somebody's birthday party.
No.
I don't think it was the sauerkraut night because the irony of that would be that I did throw up that night. See, guys, we gotta laugh about it. But all I remember was we were sitting on my ex-boyfriend's kitchen floor. Do with that what you will. And we were just chatting.
Yeah.
And I think other people were there, but
Yeah.
like everyone was kind of doing their own thing.
I think
like,
I was
hanging out.
charging up mentally for a minute. I think I
Yeah.
had decided that night. I think I had really made up my mind. I just need to spit it out and I need to tell her. And
But it
so,
was hard because we weren't really alone that much because we were all hanging out as a group. And so
I think the
that-
night had winded down. It was
winded
like
down,
later.
but everyone was like hanging out. I specifically remember we were like having fun on the floor, like laughing and stuff and like doing bits. And I remember you kind of slipping it in of like, hey, I need to tell you something. And I was like, okay. And you were like, I have an eating disorder and I've been like struggling with it for a while. And I think that was kind of like all you said about it. And I was like, got it. And I think we were both just like, and you were like, I think you said I just wanted you to know.
Yeah.
And I was
That
like,
sounds
cool,
about
cool,
right.
cool. And
Yeah.
I think there wasn't really much more. And I think we a little bit were like, we can talk about this more, not on a kitchen floor at a
Yes.
later date.
I think I remember saying let's talk, like, I just wanted to say it now, but
Yeah.
we can go into it at another point.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah, which to me, from my perspective, it felt like that was the hardest part. Like, it felt like you had taken the leap, and then it's like jumping into a pool where you're kind of like, now I'm in.
yeah.
And it kind of, everything from there
It's
is
cold
a little bit more like,
for a
it's
second,
cold,
and then
and the
it's like,
adjustment
oh, but
period
I'm
is a
in.
little like, and then you're like, okay, I'm here.
And it's the reality, and also it was safe waters I was jumping into.
Yeah. In the PAL pool.
The poop pow. The pow.
We'll work on it.
Yeah, guys, we'll workshop that.
But we had some questions that Pal's pick of the week. We watched the Will and Harper documentary this week, which is Will Ferrell going on a cross-country road trip with his best friend Harper, who is a former SNL writer who wrote most of Will Ferrell's sketches, and she has transitioned and she's a trans woman. And
She came out like during or I
kind
think
of like
she sent
shortly
the
after
email.
COVID.
Yeah.
And so this was kind of their first time really reuniting and getting to sit in that kind of, not uncomfortability, but like, is this going to be different? Like, readjustment period of like, what's the newness here?
A lot of reflection too.
Yeah. And
with
I think,
a new lens on it. Which
yeah.
is neat.
And I think it's very similar anytime like a friend tells you something in that, with that way, like there is a bit of a kind of, okay, what is allowed, what isn't allowed. And I think that's the first question that Will Ferrell asks.
Yeah.
And Harper's very like, I want you to just ask. Like, I just want my friends to ask about it so we can talk about it and then it's fine. And I think you and I were really inspired by the style in which they chose to film it and converse with, which was very candid. And it was a lot of them like sitting in Walmart parking lots, drinking beer, and like just asking frank questions. So Melissa and I came up with a few questions for each of these sections. So
just while like reflecting on the different like key portions of the story.
Yeah.
So I think like for me in that moment, having spit it out, there wasn't a part of me that thought you would respond poorly, but I think it was more so, looking back on it now, I am curious, like your first thought of like, oh, she's just said this. Was it awkward? Was it like,
I think, and so this kind of goes with the note at the beginning of, we were very uniquely set up for this situation, which is like, this wasn't my first time kind of being told something about mental health by a friend. Like, I've had a few of these conversations in my past. I've been like a confidant for a few friends, which is like a very honoring thing to be chosen to do. And I know that I'm not trying to like brag about it.
to be chosen?
But,
but it
every
is.
time like a friend has come to me and trusted me with something like that, I have felt so honored by
It's a
it.
show
and
of
just,
good faith.
yeah, and just being like, I know that wasn't easy for you to do, and the fact that you felt comfortable enough is like, it's very special. So like, you telling me that was special, but it also like wasn't my first rodeo with that kind of thing. So I think I kind of knew that now wasn't necessarily the time to go into it.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to know that like you were heard, and like I saw you, and that and let you know that like at a later date I know what questions to ask. I know like how these conversations should go.
Yeah. I think that in terms of a response is such a like appreciated thing, because that initial jump frankly takes so much energy in a way of like, I just need to say it, and then it's the acceptance and the questions can come later. And I think that's it really puts you at like me at peace in that moment, to just be able to say, I don't have to dive into it fully, but I can at least
I don't
just
have
like
to
put it on the
defend
table and
myself.
be like, hey, just so you know, this thing's here.
Yeah.
I just got to place this here, and like putting it on a table where I know it's not going to get smacked away. It's not anything like that. It is just crossing that first threshold, because that is literally the hardest part, is just that getting used to saying it out loud and getting used to saying like this problem, because the more that you start bringing it to light, that's when you can actually start working
solving
on it.
it.
You can't start solving a puzzle till you have a light on.
Do you know you have a puzzle?
You don't even know you got a puzzle.
How
Oh,
you
that's a
gonna
good
solve
point.
puzzles if you don't know
That's a
you
good
got a
point.
puzzle?
That's a good point. You don't even, because once you know that you have a puzzle, you can go, well, where's the box? I can look at the box to help me solve the puzzle. If you aren't even looking at the puzzle, though,
You're not gonna know you have a puzzle.
sorry.
But that
guys,
kind
you
of-
thought we weren't going to do any metaphors this
We're
week?
gonna slip a few in. That kind of what you said kind of ties in and kind of almost answers the question that I had for you, which is, what were kind of your reasons and hopes in asking me, if you had any, like, what were you hoping to get out of this, and like what were you hoping from me response wise? Like, even if you, and you might not even have been thinking that far ahead. You might have just been like, I just have to do it.
I think there was a part of me that saw the value in the friendship and knew that this was something that was going to be long term, and also was really tired of hiding. There is just such an exhaustion in that. And even if it's not, I don't want to be open to everybody about this issue that's very personal, but I don't want to feel like I have to, like, I don't want to feel like there is a part of me that felt so guilty about the way that I had to lie to people I love during that time, even if it was these small things, quote unquote. But it felt like I couldn't get as close unless I was willing to be very real about where I was right then and there. And at that point in college too, I had my freshman year really like that was the first time that I had really felt the full weight of my depression. And I had gotten I had a group of like 3 really, really close friends that just like they were great and got me like pretty like comfortable with, at least in these small groups, being able to open up.
Yeah. And that is such
Sam,
a muscle.
Alex, Sabrina.
That is such a muscle in and of itself. And so much of today is talking about like not having to be, but like being the pal, but also like the vulnerability it takes to open up to a pal, because that is just like what made all of this possible was your vulnerability throughout.
I think that like the hope was just to like, if I could boil it down, like the hope was to just like be seen. And it's such a like to be seen so that like it could be you that was seeing me in a way. I think like I just didn't want to, I wanted to be able to like move forward in our friendship, and also in terms of recovery, the more people you tell, the better it is. Just it's the same way that when you say a goal out loud, you're like however much more likely to have it happen. Even just saying it to a friend, I think, is useful. Even if solutions aren't found right then and there is still a part of you that is like, it's at least partially in the light again. It's at least there's a part of it that's like there's a light shown on it, and because of that, I know there will be a follow-up conversation, and that inherently, if I can't make choices on behalf of myself, I can make choices on behalf of this friend I love who I know loves me. Yeah. So I think
it's sometimes easier to love ourselves when we have friends. I mean, it is easier to love ourselves when we have friends who love us, but being able to see ourselves through our friends' eyes and kind of having that distance and being like, oh, that is someone to care about, and like I should care for myself in the way that my friends care for me. Like that reflection of love is like a mirror. Like it's true. Like I should love what my friends love, which is me. And I think but that choice that you had to continually make throughout all of this is what got us through it and like made it all possible, because I know that required a lot on your part.
But I also think too, I very much so, I can very honestly and very literally say I couldn't have gone through it without you. But I think that like I said that and then my brain was like, no, that's it. That's actually the end of the sentence. No, but like I think that that's because of the person that you are, like the way that you were willing to set yourself up in our relationship early on too, even in the grand scope, like scheme of things. I think that I opened up, and then it's one thing to accept it. It's another thing to like step into it with somebody. And I think that you took it to another level, because it's like, not everybody is going to be in that place, and not everybody's going to be able to like step up in that way, but your unique way of doing it made being seen feel more natural and less like clinical in a way.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we have to quickly wrap this whole thing up in 2 minutes, but the thing I was going to say was not to leave people being like, I mentioned that we knew a follow-up conversation was going to happen. We aren't going to really talk much more about that time period, and I'm sure we'll break it down a later time, but if you are in that position where a friend has just made that, like been vulnerable with you in that way, and you are like, I don't know what the questions are to ask, I think just really quickly some easy ones were, kind of just the basics of how can I like be there for you, and also the intention of, I think we had a conversation right after of being like, what do you need from me out of this? Like, what can I do that will make you feel most supported? And I think a lot of it was really easy stuff, like
literally just distractions,
getting meals together, but even like stuff that wasn't related to it of like like little distractions, playing games, spending time together was such an like I was like, okay, I was already doing
Yeah.
it. I was gonna do that anyway.
And also, too, because of this knowledge that I've given her, it's almost like if I were to text her at that time, like, hey, I'm going to color today.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
would
of like,
know that it's like,
yeah, but I think we'd even made up a code of just like, even just like coming over, like, like alone time is sometimes a little bit hard for me. And like being able to establish how our language is going to
work
go
together.
into that. So those college days were just like a really, really cool and structured, but like really beautiful early budding time.
And then we'll tell you more.
Pals.
When we were both hitting those high notes, I was like, oh, sorry.
Did you guys like that?
Was that a lot? I
Was that
gotta
too
learn
much?
how to play the harmonica.
Did that make you feel
absolutely no clue?
calm though? Do you feel?
Did it calm you or did it kind of put you on edge?
Because I'll be honest, I could have blown for 45 more seconds on this bad
She
boy,
was
no breath.
in between when we had to take a pause, and it was so relaxing,
Yeah.
so beautiful.
That's
Shout
the,
out your mom for her tasting
The
what are they called?
ocarina?
The ocarina.
My mom at one point goes, "Oh, do you want my ocarina?" I said, "The what?" She goes, "My ocarina."
I
I'm like,
love
"Not
the
gonna
way
get
your
it on
mom
the second
operates.
try."
Yeah, I think I first learned about it because isn't it not a Doctor Who thing, but like doesn't one of those kind of nerd shows have like have
Watch
one?
yourself.
Oh, I think Legend of Zelda. I think he has one. Anyway, and I remember someone wearing one to school and being like, "That sounds amazing."
Right. So
We
I'm
get
in
to LA.
We're in college, and then we get to LA.
Okay, we get to LA.
Shockingly, moving across the entire nation, away from your family, everything you've ever really known, into a new city, did not magically cure my eating disorder in the way that I had assumed it would. My therapist right before I left college and was going to be moving out here was like, "I don't think you should go out to LA," and I was like, "Crazy time to say that." And it was really like, unless you are like getting intensive care, like I think you're not in a great spot. And me
Which
being like,
kudos to her
"You're
for
not."
being so honest.
Oh, yeah. That was the only reason that she worked so well for me because, again, a lot of the eating disorders is like this lying to other people, but also yourself in a very real way. And so she really cut through it all and was just like, "Well, that's just not true." And I was like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in trouble with this one."
Was helpful when we got
Yeah.
to LA because you had already had a lot of the knowledge that you
Yeah, and
of,
she'd
like,
set me
what
up with a
steps-
therapist out here. Like I had found a therapist already to like transition with, and but even though moving to LA, I think I really had told my therapist, I was like, "No, I think moving to LA is gonna like honestly fix it." And she was like, "You're going to the land of the eating disorders."
Yeah.
Which is very true. Classic Rachel Sennett, Rachel
Yeah.
Sennett iconic
If you don't have an
moment.
eating disorder, get one,
one.
bitch. It's LA. That's honestly, I feel like what most people learned her from or found out about her from.
Well, I had moved here, even though it was my dream. Like I loved being here. It still didn't change it. I threw up all across Route 66, guys. on
Well,
the way
and
out
then
here.
when we get here,
Yeah.
it's we're pretty physically close. Millicent and I were sharing, as we talked about in our history of living episode,
The smallest room you can imagine.
very
Honestly,
tiny.
maybe two of these.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's
And a
pretty
bunk
tiny.
bed.
And a bunk bed that we had in the corner. So physically very close. Millicent had already been honest with me, and we had been kind of discussing like what we needed to do to prep for this time period because we knew it was going to be tough.
You know, we knew that. And it was especially tough because it is hard to be a bulimic living in a home where there's only one bathroom and you share it with 3 other people. That's kind of a nightmare.
And it's
for,
tiny.
For us.
And thin walls.
Yeah, thin walls.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the big...
And again, we've also talked about it, our pipe system, not ideal.
No, backed up
At Dixon
frequently.
Street.
Not
Not
our
ideal.
fault.
Yeah.
Not our fault.
Not on us.
The guy that came in to clean our toilet was like, "You guys been putting tampons down here?" And we were like, "No. We know this 90-year-old toilet could not handle whatever Playtex can build."
You think we don't...
And then they had to bring out that giant snake. We've talked about that.
Well, I was actually gone during that.
You were
When they
gone
brought
during
the giant
that,
snake,
so
I was
thank
in
goodness.
treatment, but we're not there yet.
Millicent comes to me, and I remember we were sitting in the living room, and she was like, "So last night I applied for a
I like filled out like an
You filled out
interest form or
yes.
something.
And you were like, and they got back to me like right away. And I was like, okay. Which, and again, I wasn't like out of the loop on that.
Yeah.
Like you have been telling me like kind of what was going on. So you have a conversation with them.
Right. It was late the night prior on my end. Was one of those lows with it where I had been, acting on some of the behaviors, and it was one of those things where, there was like some blood that I saw that really scared me straight in a very real way for those moments. And I, in that moment, was like, I was on the floor of the bathroom, and I just picked up my phone. And I was like, I'll just like see if there's just like any place that has anything. And then I found this one, and then I even saw like it had like taken my insurance or something. So I was like, I don't even know if they would even like whatever. So then I filled out just like an interest thing. I woke up at 8 a.m. to a call. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Hello, hi, is this Millicent? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? And they're like, I didn't say what's up. That's not how I answer calls.
She was so different back then, you guys. Pre-rehab Millicent, she said sup all the time. Before Hey There Pals, it was sup. It was a nightmare. She was always hanging 10.
It was bro before it was bro.
Yeah,
Dark time.
bad.
But she was basically like, you filled out an interest form. Like, do you want to? From there, basically, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Why did I email this place?
But I
Whatever.
think listening to those late night braveries
Yeah.
is such a
It only
you
takes
just
that.
gotta do it. Like I think you just kind of impulsively knew
Yeah.
this is what needed to be done.
Yeah, it's like the very real part of myself jumped out for a moment. It was like, nah, we gotta do this thing real quick.
Now, a real quick check on our house. So we at this time, as you all remember, are living with Jillian and Brie. Barely knew Brie. She was gone for most of the.
I had met her maybe 3 times the summer prior to us living there, and
We had spent maybe a week total with her at this point.
yeah,
it was
she was
early-
on jobs out of state. She was
Uh-huh.
doing all kinds of pop-up things,
So
but she
we
wasn't
just-
Papa yet.
And she was Poppy yet. I didn't really know her that well. And so Jillian was home and Brie was like across the country doing some job. So we were like, we gotta tell Jillian. Like,
Well-
Jillian's gonna wonder.
So the woman had called me, and then they had to basically give me an assessment. They were like, she was like, well, what we'll do is we'll ask you some questions, we'll record the call, and then we have a meeting with like these we have a meeting with like our team basically. So it's like one doctor, one psychiatrist, whatever, and they decide what level of care you would need. When I saw this, there were 4 different levels of care, which was like the intensive outpatient, the partial hospitalization, which is like a day program at a center, and then there was residential treatment, and then there's like inpatient treatment, which is the hospital. And so I'm thinking like, oh, they'll put me in the lower one. I take the assessment. I'm very honest with them throughout the assessment. Again, the delusion is really interesting. I was so honest with them. They were like, and how many times are you XYZ? And I just blatantly tell them. And then I get a call back about a day later, and she's like, right, so we have a bed available. Can you come Friday? And I was like, well, I need to put some things in order. What do you mean? I was under the impression I could kind of do like a pop in 3 days a week type of situation. She was like, there's medical attention that is needed. So then I made the decision to go and had told Maddie. So we did have a moment where
We had to tell Jillian. And I remember we were sitting in the living room again, as we frequently did. We had just been hanging out, like, I think maybe up at the guy's apartment, like, for a while. And I remember we came back down, and you were going to be leaving the next day. And Millicent goes, oh my gosh, you guys. We did not remember the story till this morning when we were about to record. And we were like, oh, yeah.
the way we told Jillian I was going.
Millicent goes, Jillian, I have something to tell you. And Jillian goes, oh my god, this is how Jillian takes news, okay? This is how Jillian reacts in a horror movie. This is how she takes like anything. She goes, oh my god, what's happening? What's happening?
What's happening?
She's
What's
looking
going
at me. She's looking at Jillian. She's looking at me. What's happening?
What is it?
What's it? Oh my god, are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? She thought Millicent was pregnant.
Well, she said she said, are you pregnant? And I said, yes. And Jillian goes, what?
I think you said kind of.
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, I'm pregnant with an eating disorder. And I go, oh my god.
Maddie goes, she has an eating
She has
disorder.
an eating disorder, Jillian. That's what we need you to know. And so then she kind of, we explain it to her, and she was like, okay, it takes it to some way of just being like, okay. She was like, so when do you leave? Like, she's asking these nice follow-up questions. And Millicent goes, oh, I gotta hit the hay, actually, because I gotta get up and go tomorrow. We choose not to tell Brie.
Again, Brie was gone, so we were kind of like, why tell her?
It's
this
not
person
gonna
we
drill
don't
it.
know?
We barely know.
You get a call from these roommates you agreed to live with who are like a little younger than you.
You're
and it's
in
just like,
Ohio.
yeah, what are you gonna do?
But there's no reason for Brie to know. We're like, if she comes back, we'll tell her. Millicent has to drive herself, or I think you are just like, I'll drive myself.
Yeah, because I think I thought I could have my car there. You can't.
No, which was the first time I got to go and pick up your car, but I couldn't come in yet because you
I
hadn't
hadn't
already
filled out
that
the
yet.
form.
Yeah,
I hadn't
yeah,
earned it yet.
which was fine. So we've made it to treatment. Dun, dun.
Welcome to treatment.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous. It was, again, I can't stress this enough. The, like, especially living more years after this experience, the utter gratitude I have and the recognition for the privilege of having health insurance, let alone like a health insurance that was like covering this for that time period. Like, that's insane. And I also know that like barriers to access to treatment is like a very real problem.
Which is, and we don't have to go into it now, but
Project highlight. Project Heal. Project Hope. I bet that's already taken too. There's another group doing Project
Hope is probably amazing.
Yeah, Project Heal has a lot of resources and does a lot of they do a lot of great stuff. So
A lot of it is specifically for if you do not have like insurance or and you need treatment.
Trying to just like help you out, even if it's like virtual groups that you can be in, whatever. Not whatever, but so we get to this place. I get to this place, and thus treatment has begun. We won't go fully into the full scope of it, but it's a home. It looks like a house.
Yeah,
a really nice house.
Yeah.
And there's just staff that I couldn't, toilets were on lockdown, baby.
You were allowed to have your phone for certain hours a night.
Like at night, yeah.
So the first, I think maybe like 5 days you were there, 4 days you were there, maybe. I don't think it was long. I could not visit you.
Yeah.
You couldn't text me. You weren't like out of reach.
Because I think it was like they had to meet with my team. It was something where it's like your therapist has to approve the guests that are coming.
Which
and I hadn't met with my
sense.
therapist yet. So, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people too, it's like if this person that dropped you off is your trigger, it's like you don't want them showing up to the place you're trying to heal.
It's very much so like this is a safe space in every regard. Like that really is like what they were going for. And very necessary, but also just, again, me at that time showing up there, it is just like still us. There was a craft room. I was lighting it up in the craft room.
So
baby.
when I was finally able to visit Millicent, I could come evenings from like, I think it was from 7 to 9.
It would have been after dinner, but before evening snack.
Because I think you had to drink your water or something.
Yeah. Fun fact, I couldn't drink water like freely. Like they had like certain time. Well, again, everything is like because eating disorder people are little tricksters.
Yeah, it's all like trickster proof. They got a bunch of rugrats in this house, and they're all trying to get out of it. So it was very. And again, I think the biggest takeaway from this, and I want to say it now so I don't forget it, was that throughout all of this. So in case you're getting nervous about this or whatever. I think we had a lot of questions about what was going to happen in terms of like our dynamic.
Yeah.
And I don't even think we had really time to process those questions because it was all of a sudden so fast.
Within a week, I was there.
Yeah.
And
but I think that the most reassuring part was throughout it all. It was like we were just like girls throughout it. Like again, we were freshly 21.
Yeah.
We were young, brand new city. But I think like even the time we spent there, it was still just like us. Hanging out. Like we really did our own.
Maddie was working on her like first job out here, and it was like the beginning of Maddie's style evolution. And getting to see her at the end of the day, I wore this today because I wore this like every day in treatment so much that they were like, hey, like maybe let's take a break from that striped sweater real quick. Let's see if you can wear other clothes. Let's just check that out.
Which great challenge.
Because
you realize how hard the challenge is, and you go,
that's why they're the professionals.
Like we can shout out what our clothes are now. I'm wearing a shirt that Millicent made at one point for a fundraiser. Says, have you eaten enough today?
Isn't that cute?
Something to think about.
Yeah, one of Maddie's favorite questions.
I love popping it. But so I was able to visit you, and it was so funny because
I was just gonna say real quick. It was just great every time that Maddie came in to visit me. I was like, oh my gosh, it was such a like character entrance because I couldn't open up the door. I could only open up this little latch.
And be like, they're coming.
Yeah, it was like a fun old Spanish style door. So it had like this little latch that could open. And so I could just be like, I'd be bouncing inside the door.
Yeah.
While I waited for the person to
open it. It was funny because I think after the first time that I came, we kind of got to be like, you guys get what this is now. We don't gotta pretend that we're not gonna behave this way. We're gonna be weird and excited because we haven't seen each other all day.
I think at one point I was bouncing up and down when you were coming in and they were like, that's too much movement. I was like, right.
Getting in the exercise.
One time Maddie brought me a record and I played it and I was dancing and they were like, hey.
To be fair, it's a pretty dancey record.
It was a dancey cigarette. Cigarette Sucker Punch album.
A great record. Oh, that record really. We should have been listening to that album getting ready for today.
Yeah, that was really that time. That was like our first record I think that we bought as a collective.
Yeah. It was really, and we listened to it all the time.
Yeah.
So Cigarette Sucker Punch record, great time, fun music videos. So I'm getting to visit Millicent a lot,
And I'm getting to see her fits.
and we got to sit in this pretty cool like back room. It almost felt like a greenhouse. It had some fun windows and like benches.
Guys, again, and we had heating here. We didn't have heating at our house.
This is
So I
when
was
the
like,
heating in our house had gone out, and I was like, well,
Maddie's coming here to thaw.
guess I'll go see Millicent.
And we had running water and toilets.
It was a lovely home.
Yeah, when I got back after treatment, and it was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Take me back.
The tiniest little room again that sharing. But there was a lot of in the chaos of that, and obviously that being like an extremely difficult time in your life, we were able to kind of have little moments of entertainment, and like it just felt like that was my only job in going there, was again already doing what I wanted to be doing, which was spending time with you and like just kind of getting to be a person, you know, just for an hour or however long I was allowed to be there.
Oopsie. Okay, we don't know where that cut out. We were having an earnest discussion about Millicent getting to treatment, and I don't know what part we left off on. Anyway,
Guys,
she was.
The
it was
wisdom I was dropping.
It was beautiful. It's just
Profound.
spinning quilts of
But
knowledge.
I think because of the way that I was channeling it from above, I don't know that we'll be able to repeat it.
It's a
exactly
once in a lifetime
verbatim.
moment. But if it got cut out, I would get to visit Millicent from like for a couple hours every night, and she wasn't able to answer the door.
Yeah,
she
so
could
I'd
just open, "Hello, people,"
I got to bounce up and down, and then they'd say, "Don't bounce so much.
and then
You're not supposed to be moving that much."
somebody else would come and get it. But we I'm sure this part got in, and I think it did. But throughout it all, we were girls.
We were girls. We were girls together in that rehab center.
It didn't change the dynamic, I think, in
No.
the way that it seemed like
There
it
were
might.
some elements that bled over from, again, our personalities into the place. Now, we introduced Mr. Dino. I had requested Mr. Dino for treatment because I was taking all the comfort I could get.
Yeah, and it was fun that when
Yeah.
because again, she could text me, so she would be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, can you bring this when
I
you
was
come
like, can
tonight?"
you
or-
bring Mr. Dino? Guys, Maddie shows up, has Mr. They open the door. I see her at the peephole. She's holding Mr. Dino up. Door opens. They have to, this is how they, and I understand why they have to check everything. Like when I got there, they went through like all my stuff. I couldn't have a weighted blanket. And I said, why can't I have my weighted blanket? And they were like, you might work out with it. And I was like,
They
that's
thought
good.
of everything.
That's good. I would have gotten to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Give me
know.
one more week. I would have been doing leg presses with my weighted
And
blanket.
they thought he was smuggling. They thought that
Yeah.
he was packing.
So they literally had to like, they held him up and like had to
They
squeeze
shook him down, guys. He got the
each of
pat
his
down.
lips.
He got a pat down. Look at him.
He's whole.
He doesn't
well,
have
they
a lot
didn't
of
make
fluff in him.
limp.
And probably because they were like, he's lumpy as hell.
Well, he's awesome though because you can really like sit him up. And, okay, so let me tell you a little bit. So here's
Yeah.
the thing. Maddie and I, we personified Mr. Dino prior to this already.
Because he was at my ex-boyfriend's house most of the. Remember how I said we hung out every day? We hung out with him every day too.
This guy.
He was around.
Yeah, and we just like thought he's adorable and he's so much fun and he's really huggable and like you can really sit with him. So Maddie had brought him, and we already at the house did little bits with Mr. Dino.
I think I was gonna get rid of him when we got to LA at one
I got
point because I was like,
really
he's just
upset.
a little big, and Millicent was like, I'll take him.
I was like
great.
actually kind of upset.
Yeah, she was like, we've been through so much together.
She was like, it's my boyfriend.
It just was big, and we were in the smallest room possible in a bunk bed.
What do you
Twin bunk
mean
bed.
get rid
I
of
didn't have
Mr.
room
Dino?
for a
Look at
full
this
person.
guy. He's the perfect, like, he actually really is just like great.
He
to
is
take.
great to
He's on
snuggle
my
with.
bed now permanently.
So I bring him from Millicent. He gets the shakedown,
Yeah.
but Millicent loves having him there.
I love having him there, guys. I
So
am looking,
sewer.
guys, in the time period that I was at this treatment facility, they were like, oh, people like really, like nobody at the house during my time there really like loved the craft room. I had paper chains going. I had windows covered. I had little clay dinosaurs. I was going nutty on the air dry clay.
When I got there one night, because she would get to show me what she had been doing that day, and she had like, I'm not joking, a dozen clay figurines, and I was like, wow, it really felt like the episode of Parks and Rec when Ben's like, could a depressed person do this? And it's like his clay figurine that he's been doing.
Well,
2
at one
seconds
point
of
they were
stop
like,
motion.
"Have you ever considered that you're?" And then they were like, "Well, are you using the crafting to distract yourself?" And I was like, "Don't."
Don't take
do
this from me.
this.
It's what's keeping me afloat.
And Mr. Dino was too. So I loved.
Don't tell them that.
I would
Not them. the
set him
reasons.
up like if I was in a room like reading or something, I'd set him up on a chair next to me, like with a book on his lap. And then I was doing bits with him. And finally, like,
Funny.
necessary.
They
They said I couldn't have him sitting at the table. Okay. Rude. So I sat, so
swearing through Mr. Dino. She's like, bitch.
no, at one point though during a meal, I think the craft room, you could see it from like the dining room table, and I set him up at the craft table, like staring at the table. Anyways, one morning,
Again, Milton just stalking people with it, being like, he said it.
one day I had come downstairs, like to start the day, like for group therapy, and I asked the therapist, because you couldn't go up and down the stairs on your own either. Again, they're thinking of everything, guys. You couldn't go up and down the stairs, and the therapist, I was like, oh, can I get Mr. Dino? I didn't bring him down for the day. And she goes, we actually think Mr. Dino's gonna stay upstairs today. And I was like, what?
And the we is the most painful part. Being like, a group has consulted on Mr. Dino. That's big time for you, buddy. You made it. The docs are
think
talking about whether you're good for a woman's mental well-being.
Well, it was tough because like Tuesdays were when the whole team would get together. Like, they'd sit around a table
Yeah.
at the I think like in the
Ultimate
office.
gossip sesh.
And you literally, and that was when you'd find out if you were going to maybe get discharged or whatever. And so after, like, I remember it was after one of those days or something, and I was like, and
the
she
council?
goes- and I said, wait, why? Why? What's wrong with Mr. Dino?
You
And
being like, what did he say?
Did he? He didn't.
Did he?
didn't say a
I know
slur
he's had a
again.
thing for Lindsay. I told him
Did
to
he
keep it in his pants.
So, but the way that it was said, I had a moment then where I was like, oh no, I forgot the context of all in which came before me, and that I am being perceived in a different way. And so maybe some of these bits might be taken literally. And I hope that this team of professionals doesn't believe that I am having full-fledged conversations with this dinosaur. But I can
I'm
understand
like,
why.
and my question for this segment is, were you?
The truth comes out.
But were the truth about Millicent and Mr. Dino? Was it a love affair?
Guys, look at how you can set him up.
More than friends or less than lovers? That is going to be our headline when we make scandalous news. Oh, look at him, guys. Isn't he so cute?
He's
That's the way he
adorable.
just flops is so precious. Now to the questions that you and I had
Yes.
kind of about this time period. And again, if you feel like this is getting too heavy, we forgot to mention this at the top. We have a little treat for you at the end. If you make it to the end, we might
debut.
dare I say my favorite Papa plot of all time. Hot off the presses, you
Hot
guys.
off the presses, guys, with receipts.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a multimedia Papa plot.
Yep.
If
You're
you
gonna
stick
want to
around.
stick through the
And if
tough
you're
eating
like,
disorder stuff, and you'll make it to a Papa plot. Okay.
I am imagining there probably are some people that are watching and are hearing the stuff about going up and down the stairs or bouncing up and down, might be like, well, why couldn't you do that? It's a whole scope of reasons, but they have to cover all the bases in a place like this for like any type
Yeah.
of behavior.
I think, yeah.
I'm just cutting over. I don't know.
Yeah.
Listen, if you were thinking that, I read your mind. I heard you. I heard you.
I heard you and I addressed it. You've been addressed. But again, Millicent and I had written some questions that we wanted to ask each other. So I guess I think the one that I will start with in terms of like us, the role shifting to like support person and person being supported was a new level for us. Like we'd already kind of done some of it, but like this is a new level of accountability, which felt very smooth to me. Like it felt like we eased into it fairly easily, but you were the one having to be vulnerable. And so my question is, was there anything that made you nervous about this new level of did you cough?
Thank you for
Yeah.
seeing that.
Of this new level of trust and vulnerability that you, because again, you were the one kind of having to be vulnerable in those
Yeah.
moments.
Well, I think there's a fear that's really common throughout just like mental health spaces is the fear of being a burden. But specifically with it of being like, I think that the primary fear would have been that it's coming from a place of obligation, or that it is burdensome to you, or that, you know, like she's coming off of a full work day and she's coming to do this. Like, I don't want her to feel like this is something she has to do. But I think though that a lot of that fear was mitigated by the way in which you always showed up, which was always very sincerely just as you, which I think was like really helpful. But there is just always going to be that sense of like, guilt for that time of being like, this is her first year in LA too. Like she should be out. She should be like doing this stuff. So it like means the world, but there is also that like weight of like, I don't want to be this like heaviness to this person. So I guess like my question for that would be like, how did you see that? Like what was your perspective in that, hearing that?
I think my only change in how I felt about this situation when it got to this point was, I think it definitely helped me get a perspective of like, we have been taking it seriously, but I think again it was you reaching out and being like, hey, it's actually more serious than I've been kind of like letting on, which again was another like step of faith in that way. But I think that was my biggest adjustment mentally to us, was being like, oh, this is serious. Like we need to be taking this seriously. Like eating disorders are a very, very serious thing. They can lead to so many other health issues. Like we're going to kind of discuss that later, just to kind of give a good overview. But I think that was my main focus in the role shifting. Like I don't really feel like going to I wanted to be hanging out anyway, and it was kind of fun to go to this thing. And it sounds so messed up because you were having the worst time of your life, obviously. Like I'm not trying to be like it was fun, but I think that it was just so natural to kind of get to see this as a challenge in a fun way of like, how do we keep this fun, and like how do we get through this in a us kind of way. So it didn't, that at that time especially, it did not. There's your part two. And this is not me being like, it feels like a burden later, but things get more serious later, and I think that kind of shifted things in a different way. But this, I think, was the only shift, was me really being like, okay, we need to be taking this seriously. Like, I need to be a little bit more of an accountability person for Millicent in this, and kind of really being like, hey, what do you need from me? It didn't feel like there was any time to be like it wasn't a big deal. And again, I feel so fortunate that I was able to. I wasn't working a lot of night shifts. Like I was able to have that time to come see you.
How were you like at that time specifically? I guess like you leave after a visit and maybe it was like a little bit heavier or something. Like how are you taking care of yourself in that time period?
I think, and we also talked about this in this, I was really fortunate at that time that I was like my ex-boyfriend at the time like had been my best friend for like 6 years. Like we were very close, and so it was not, and you were very like at this point very like, you can obviously tell him like what this
he also
has been
knew.
Like. He knew, like
he came and visited too.
So
he checked out the digs.
It wasn't like and I also think I was just like working. I was going to bed pretty shortly after I was getting home. Like my evening was already going to be at home, probably with Millicent, eating dinner and then going to bed and then getting up early the next morning. So it wasn't. I don't think at that time, I think having somebody there at home to just even talk about it with was nice. And I'm really grateful for that. But I don't think that I was like going home with a burden in any way. I was not feeling like, oh man, I was like, I just got to hang out in this fun house with Millicent.
If anything, I think that we are both pretty good at this point, especially after the fact, of seeing things as like, oh, this is just a story. Well, there's a story for you.
And we're here. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. May I ask you my other final question for this? Which was, we've, a lot of times in our conversations about mental health stuff, it obviously comes up how isolating mental health can be. And you've talked about like did you say the thing about the secrets?
I don't know that
do
I
you
did.
Want to say that now?
I was supposed to bring this up at the intro. We were talking about telling Maddie in college, but one thing that a therapist had said to me about 2 years ago, because recovery isn't linear, and you always hear about that, but the idea is, he said at one point, because I was having a little bit of a hard time, like not like a relapse or anything, but it was just like I was, having to be a little bit more intentional about the recovery. And I remember I told him, and I hadn't wanted to say anything because it felt like it made it real in a way to say it out loud. And he just said, like, you're only as sick as your secrets. And I think like that really was helpful. Of the moment you are willing to like open up and be vulnerable is when you're actually able to like get better,
get progress.
And it's like the more secrets that you're keeping, the worse this is actually looking.
Because again, once you just make that jump, things can start rolling in a much smoother way.
And throughout recovery, it's only once you start secret keeping again that it's like, what are you up to? Why you gotta hide stuff? Why are you hiding from the people that know this?
Which is kind of, I guess, a part of it, which is that we've discussed how isolating addiction or any sort of mental health struggle can be. And even though we were seeing each other fairly frequently while you were in treatment, do you feel like where were you mentally in terms of feeling lonely or feeling isolated, or like that people weren't understanding, or was this, you had other things mentally that were going on at that time?
I think it was the first I was told when I was going into treatment that people are there usually for 3 to like 8 weeks. So mentally in my mind, I was like, I'll be out in 3 weeks. Great.
Mhm.
Oh, the lowest amount you can be in there is 3 weeks. I'll probably be able to ace this. I could get out in 2.5, I bet. So I think like that time period in terms of the isolation, the FOMO didn't start like, I didn't start feeling like I was really like stuck. Like I was in this like, it felt a lot of times like I was in this like wormhole of it of, oh my gosh, my whole world has to be like recovery right now. And that's so frustrating to be like, it was, and guys, this was around towards the end of my stay there. I was in the house for 6 weeks and then like I went down in treatment to like the partial thing. But like, I think, yes, to answer that question, yeah, the isolation was still really there. Even, it wasn't so much like I knew I wasn't alone. I was very aware that I had so much love, and it really was just a cognitive dissonance of like, but I feel like I am on this like playing field or this like battlefield, like this internal battlefield, very much so alone. And I think in that time too, once we got past those 3 weeks and it kind of became real, and the treatments, I had a really real conversation with the therapist where she was like, do you think you're the first person to come in here with an eating disorder and like think you can just like ace your way out? Like you came here for a reason. Like there was a very real part of you that called out to do this, and you owe it to
let
that.
it speak.
You're here.
Yeah.
You're here.
Let her
and
out.
guess what? The whole room of professionals is not buying your act of like whatever
I'm
this is,
fine.
you're doing it. Yeah. And me sitting in that chair across from her just like,
And you got kept in there a longer amount of time than you
Yeah.
thought you were going to, which obviously adds a whole wave of frustration when you
Yeah.
think you're gonna go home.
and especially when it's October.
You guys know how we feel about October.
Once it hit October, I think that was when I was really like clawing at the walls of the enclosure, literally.
Yeah.
Well, not literally. I wasn't clawing on any walls. I was getting mad, but that's what they wanted.
Yeah. Which
'Cause
is
a big
kind
part
of
of
healthy is like breaking that down.
And I think that like truly the isolation came from like literally feeling isolated of like, I remember you guys would leave and I would just be like, they're going to our house. And like, I want to go home.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a part of it, but I also think that's just part of being away from literally like
Your
displaced.
life.
But yeah, I think for the most part though, there was the knowledge of what actually was and where I was at mentally. And they started to merge like as the time went on. But
I think that, and that was just something that I wanted to get to hear, like your mindset of, and I think it's good for especially friends of people who are going through something to kind of know mentally where their friend is at, of know, like, even if you are giving your care and support, like that might not be reciprocated in the way that you want it to at that time if that person is not at that point yet.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're not appreciating it. And
No.
that makes it sound like Mills was like being mean to me while I was there. Mills and I were having a delightful time. But I'm just saying that it's a very common thing of people maybe pushing back.
Especially, oh my gosh, because like it, like that's like kind of the treatment era of it, especially moments in treatment where it is designed and it needs to break it. For me specifically, treatment was like a lot of work to essentially like break the facade that I had built that essentially had started like eating me alive.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
so there are elements to recovery, and this was a treatment center that is really into the exposure therapy, right? So if it's exposure therapy for an eating disorder, you can fill in the blanks as to what that would look like. And within eating disorders, they refer to like you have certain fear foods, or there are things that just for some reason 3 years ago, I had decided I was not going to eat donuts for XYZ reason, and because of that, by God, you're not going to make me eat a donut. But then at one point, which sounds again,
okay, so
when you're not
support people when your friend is being like, they're making me drink 2 milkshakes today. Don't be sympathetic to that, okay?
Because I had to drink 2 milkshakes one day, and
bigger.
you would have thought they Skyped my mother and hit, like, you would have thought they had,
It's
like...
bigger than the milkshake. You need to know
It's
that.
not
It's not
the
about
milkshake,
the milkshake.
guys.
It's
It ain't
never really
that.
been about the milkshake.
If I can get one point across to anybody about eating disorders who's, like, outside from it, it's not about the food, trust
It's not
me.
about the food. It's so much bigger.
The food's the easier one to spot, but it ain't about the food. Like,
It's
that's
not
the
yes.
tangible...
It's a control. There's much more going on than
Yes.
that. So just be sympathetic to that.
Yes.
Know that it's gonna be, and again,
And-
laughing at it is funny. Like,
and
it's a funny thing to be like, oh, about.
to like look back on. Like, there was one day in particular though where I had agreed to eat a donut. Okay, guys? I had agreed I will eat a donut. Okay, I'll do it.
Again, those brave moments of just saying yes.
Yes. And I'd agreed to eat the donut, and then I was presented with the opportunity. Okay, well now, we got to get the donut. You got to eat the donut, right? I'm under the impression in my head, I'm like, it's going to be a Dunkin' Donut. It's going to be like the Dunkin' Donut, a classic donut, right? So when they put a cronut in front of me, you can imagine that where I was
that
mentally,
cronut showing up. Hey, bitch. Miss me? Licking its lips.
I said, that's not a donut. And they were like, that's the only one they had. I said, that's a cronut. I agreed to a donut. And they were like, you can see.
You trying to get them on semantics.
But it is so funny because
I'd eat it if it was a donut. I'm just saying that's not a donut.
The girl arguing over a cronut versus a donut is the same girl that's like, why are you not giving me my discharge date?
Yeah.
Why am I not? Let me out.
You see how it's adding up? So Millicent.
So anyways, I had gotten really upset about this cronut. And then later that night, I think there was another situation where there actually was an accident and they had actually doubled up on exposure snacks.
They didn't know you had an outing scheduled that evening.
Yeah, and I was like, I have to eat 2 milkshakes today, and I was about ready to overthrow an empire. I was upset, which is exactly what they wanted and exactly what I needed, and I'm very grateful for it in retrospect. But I texted Maddie. This is when I reached out in my fury and my rage, and I was like, I just need somebody to get mad with me.
I don't even think you texted me.
I think I texted our angry friend,
Uh-huh.
hoping that they would provide an angry response, being like, yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous. Why would you eat 2 milkshakes in an evening?
Now, cut to what's actually happening, which is Millicent sends this text to a person that we lived with at the time, and not in our household, but like a guy that we knew, and he came to me, down to my apartment. He texted me and was like, hey, can I come down? I have to show you a text. And I was like, sure. He comes down. He reads me the long Millicent text about this donut that I know to her seems like a chill text about a donut. It's long. It's mad. It's talking too much about this donut.
Guys, eating disorders are wild.
Yeah. And it was just her, like, because it was spiraling into you're upset about a lot there because it was all kind of crumbling at that point. Like the facade was coming down, which is again a part of it. But she was like, they're making me do this, but it was mostly about the donut. But her just being like, and can you believe that? Like it was just a little bit of just, can you believe
You've seen a cronut? Those things are huge.
Yeah. The guy was like, I don't really know how to respond. And I was like, I think you need to just kind of give a like pretty generic, just like, remember why you're there. Send that out.
Trust the professionals.
End it kind of thing.
And then I think I just responded, boo, period.
I'm sorry to puppeteer that response.
I was so mad.
Yeah, everybody got to understand. Maddie got her hand a little bit in everything.
All the pies?
Yeah.
Where's Maddie?
You think Maddie won't know it? I might.
But that to say, there are those moments, and again, in retrospect, like in the moment, that is a little bit more intense feeling, but like again, in retrospect, like and that is not to diminish that at the time for myself. It really is in a way, I think, useful to like be in a healthy mindset and be able to look at that so that if that were to be coming up again, I can be like, wait a minute.
I knew that was silly last time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Nope. You're just an eating disorder.
Hey. See ya.
Intermittent fasting. You're just an eating disorder.
I'd love like a vintage like after school cartoon of you like superhero fighting an eating disorder. Not like the eating disorder is like a monster, you know. Imagine the Mucinex guys.
Oh yeah.
You could slap them all around. Think about it.
Think about it, guys.
So there was and I think at that time, I was not upset that you had not reached out to me because I knew why you hadn't reached out to me. Like again,
I reached out to our the most negative person I knew.
Yeah.
Like I was like, surely this person will affirm that these people are being stupid, right? They love doing that.
A part of being the support person and being a pal is knowing where your friend's coming from. Of kind of being like, hey, I'm not gonna take this personally. This ain't about me. This ain't about the donut. It's actually about a long history that's built up to this moment. Not about any of us, other than what's going on. So don't take that kind of stuff personally if you feel like that is what's happening. Like
it's being aware that it like in those moments truly like the nightmare scenario is in that moment being like, oh, I don't want this, like, I don't want any of these strays to be hitting my buddy. I
Yeah.
don't want any of that. Meanwhile, the strays are just hitting cronuts for some reason.
That cronut's getting a beating back at the house. Milson's swearing it out.
I'm just swearing it out and then going, all right, I'll take the insure.
All right. I'm tapping out on this one.
Yep. And you know what?
You know what?
He had a point.
Yeah.
That
yeah.
cronut had a point.
and he had a few words to say.
But also being in treatment was interesting because the staff there, as I approached kind of my discharge time when I was actually going to be able to like leave, I was leaps and bounds, guys. Truly, this place was very, very efficient. So when it came time to be coming home, you know, you're going to be going from, I had around the clock, like somebody on me, making sure I was, you know, behaving, but also doing okay. And it was going to be going to a much different environment. And so with that, just to give you guys an idea of this, Maddie is the only person I signed a HIPAA release form for.
Feels good.
At the rehab facility. Meaning, Maddie is the only person that, like, the staff could talk. I think it was literally just you for that the staff could, like, call with stuff. Like, she was my emergency contact, but also, like, if there were anything, like, they were allowed to share information with her. And I remember my nutritionist, we had a meeting together with you where we were just going over, like, you know, some of the, like, you know, plans and kind of just how the house would be set up to support this and kind of just some of that stuff. And I think at one point, did you speak to the dietitian alone?
I spoke to your therapist at a later date.
Okay.
That was a different situation.
Okay.
I don't think I remember the group thing, but I don't.
Yeah. But I just remember after that call, the dietitian just being like, and mind you, dietitians are the most hated people in a residential eating disorder facility. And that's not because they're bad people. It's because
you're the enemy. You're public
you
enemy
are
number one.
you are literally public
and again,
enemy.
baby, it ain't about you.
And they know that.
It
Oh,
ain't
they
about the
so
cronuts.
know
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
they so know that at this point. If they've been in the game for any amount of time.
Yeah, they know any words spat at them. Don't take
They're
it
like, that's just because
personally.
I told you you got to eat a bowl of cereal tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
you're so upset with me right now. And it ain't even about the
It
cereal.
ain't about cereal.
But after that call, we had hung up and she was just like, man, I got to be honest, you know, as a treatment facility, it's like never feels like great, you know. Like there are sometimes where you discharge a patient and you're like, go fly. And then there's other ones where it is just like, you are like, just like, there's that concern. You want people to like be able
Especially
to like
if they're
take
going
care
back
of
into a tougher
Yeah.
environment or.
And she was just like, but truly what you have in terms of, because we had told her just about our living situation and like our friends and just all of that. She was just like, truly like, I feel so good about this for you because of the support you have. Just like even she was like, even just Maddie, but like everything that I've heard about like what you guys have going on, like that is literally going to be the biggest like factor in this success long term. Which was like, I was really like, yeah, I have pretty great friends, huh? Yeah, I got a pretty good thing going on.
Yeah, we got a pretty sick photo collage on the wall.
Yeah,
We each picked 3 photos for a large collage of images.
You guys probably should have let me out 3 or 4 weeks ago, huh? They're
Probably
like,
wrong
no.
on you. They're like, no, actually, you need another week.
But that was like, it's such an honor to like, in that moment, I felt like a proud parent, even though it was very much so the other way around, and me being like, yeah
Well, I
Judy's
think
pretty great.
before we have to wrap up this section, I think that the last thing I'll say about this is that what made it easy to be your pal on the outside was that I knew you were putting in the effort. You every step of the way was your choice. Like I was there to support you, but like you made the decision to go there. Like she submitted the form. She like drove herself there. Like I know it was tough to stay there, but they like had you stay, and you were committed to.
Once you're there, you're there.
Yeah, like there was even a part of you that like even though a lot of it was like jokey and resisting of being there, like there was a part of you that sincerely knew you should be there. And I think knowing that your pal is trying to better themselves for like your life to get like we had talked so much about like what being in LA was gonna be like, and that experience we wanted to have still that we had not gotten to get yet because it was so early in our time in LA.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that you were doing what needed to be done to make that happen felt like a gift to me, like that you were gonna be around for all of that. So for this,
we built this city.
I don't know if have we sang Have we talked about Graceland 2 on here? That I actually think is more for part 2.
And if you know Graceland too, you'll allude.
You'll understand.
Sorry for that, but look where we are now. But just real quick, like getting out of treatment, it was so important for me because I told the team at one point when I was stepping down from the second level of treatment, when I was really going to be like done, I told them, I was like, I feel like I want to be living the life that I recovered to have. And the whole reason that you want, like, if you can't find a reason again inside of yourself, it's like the people that love you want to see you loving yourself. And so it's like, if you are not liking yourself enough to take those actions, love your friends enough to take those actions so that you can eventually be able to like get out of that phase, and not that phase, but like you can move through that, and then you get to be there for your friend again, or you get to like, you know, that the support person and the pal, like getting to like flow in and out of that is so much of what connection is. And it's just, yeah, it's an honor to have experienced it alongside Maddie. So
It's an honor to have been there. And it's probably going to get off.
yeah, so we'll see. Guess who's back on a brand new track? I got everybody in the club going mad. Go crazy, your lady.
I don't know this one.
I think
I hope
it's
you're like,
the
yeah,
ludicrous
that's fine, just kinda
rap from Evacuate the Dance Floor.
Fast and Furious star Ludacris.
I believe I know that because of a show choir performance.
Oh,
Yeah, you better believe
yeah. When
we
you
had
had
on
rapping in your show choir
neon-
song,
Yeah,
Look out, Ryan
the one
Murphy.
football player, they got him center stage, baby.
Yeah. You're gonna let everybody know he chose to do
See?
this.
Pep
It's
rally?
fun.
Do you see that?
Pretty cool to be in
Yeah.
show choir, huh?
Yeah.
They rap now. So we get home.
we get home. I get home. Yes.
You return right
It's
before Halloween.
Right before Halloween.
Thank
I get
goodness.
home and the roomies have decked out our home.
Yeah, went
Our
crazy
living
at
room. They
Dollar
put
King.
all these like ghouls on the lamp, so when they turned it on, like they were
fan?
flying. Oh yeah,
pretty
the
fun.
fan. It was awesome.
Our fan that almost killed your mom.
Oh yeah, it was almost like coming out of the ceiling,
Oh,
and she was sleeping right underneath it.
We've talked
Besides
about
the
this.
point, but getting out of the treatment center, like we said earlier, the dietitian had really been like, I feel really good about this because of the environment that you're going back into that is so supportive and like feels so good.
Meanwhile, it's a nightmare at home.
But for that though, I mean, there's obviously, from your perspective, was there hesitancy with me getting out of being like, uh-oh, like it used to be she had full time, especially because you said that you took it more seriously, I think, once treatment started and you kind of started understanding some of the medical side effects. And
Well, the nice part was when you came home, you had a sheet that basically kind of explained, almost like a care sheet.
yeah,
That was,
it's like an if this happens, try this.
yeah, and it was really
It's called
helpful.
a crisis plan.
It was so helpful to just kind
Yeah.
of be like, okay, here are the kind of topics to avoid, or like
Yeah.
steer other people away in conversation if they don't know, like not to be talking about that kind
Yeah.
of stuff or whatever. And then also kind of it wrote down some of your stress indicators, which was really helpful because a lot of those
Yeah.
are smaller signs, and being the support person and being out with you a lot and getting to like know those and kind of being able to respond to that.
Yeah.
I think was helpful.
Yeah, it was good for me too, having to fill it out, because I mean, I can just look at the questions alone, but like,
Drew a little pee on our coffee.
yeah,
our
Maddie
coffee
went
shop we went to
crazy on
today
our
had a
coffee.
little pink
Pink sleeves.
pink
They're very cute.
sleeves.
So honestly, filling it out was really useful because it basically had me list out like my triggers and stressors, behaviors, situations, and circumstances that like put me at emotional risk. So I like listing out those was good for me, just knowing that, because like once you know what you're looking for, you're able to really look for it and keep an eye out. And then there was a section for like warning signs, so like behavior signals that I might do that mean that like maybe I am kind of like starting to get more stressed out. So it's like stuff that's like simple, like zoning out and like my eyes darting or whatever it is, like for me. in that-
I wanted them to be so specific, like when she blinks 3 times with her right eye and once
and
with
pulls on her
left,
right ear.
then says "Auga 7." You'll know.
You'll know.
Something's about to happen.
But then it also has like me listing out like my coping skills, so like the things that I would do to like help myself in those moments, like DBT skills that I had learned during treatment. They kind of like said that it's like you have a toolbox, and so it's like having these different things that you can pull from, and then even having a list of things to do like with that, like
That's
my
what-
goal
yeah.
for working through that moment. And so both of us knowing that, like having this for me was useful because it was good for me, like, to like exercise having that, and having that for you. What did that do for you, having this?
It just felt like, oh, okay, here it is, pretty plain and simple of what. And again, I know I ended the last segment saying this, but I knew you were trying, and like you were genuinely putting forward an effort to heal and get better. So I knew you were already pretty on top of this, but it was nice to be like, these are easy step-by-step way that I can just casually kind of help my pal when I feel like she's needing it.
Time doesn't also, by doing it ahead of time, it's like time doesn't need to be spent in the moment trying to figure out what's going on or what you can do. It's just like you can just automatically start
I also
doing
think
that.
so much of this experience felt like, and we had talked about this last night, of I feel like it was a lot of just kind of silently asking, do you trust me? And each of us, each time just responding yes to that. Because I think even coming home to this, it just felt like I knew that you were also going to, we had already established this level of accountability that it was like there was no reason for you to hide or lie, especially at this fresh moment of it. Like you had been practicing for this
like
moment.
at that point,
you had already been sitting through therapy. Like
guys,
you
at
were
that
open.
point, I had been asking to flush the toilet for 6 or 7 weeks.
So she was pretty chill with being open with
in
information.
terms of boundaries for privacy, I feel like you really, once you have to like to dive into recovery fully, you really do have to just be like, all right,
here we are.
And here I am.
Which made it so helpful, and Jillian at the time was so receptive to it, because I was like, after we had the call with the dietitian, I was able to kind of tell Jillian, like, this is what's going on, and like this is kind of maybe the things to avoid saying or doing, like when Milson is back. And everyone was so receptive to that.
And also the things to avoid, I think it was really like a good foundation for us, even in moving forward with like building a community, of the way that we speak about like ourselves and the kind of language that it's like not policing the language at all, but
it just
more
feels
so
like a natural state of being.
Because it's like we're not shutting down what is being said. We're shutting down, like, if we heard somebody speak about our friend that way, we would respond pretty bluntly and be like, we don't talk like that.
Pretty reversing it, diverting it. We became pretty good at,
and almost making it like a little bit of a game. But I think like early on,
make sure you have your light. It's not facing her.
But also just like early on, it was those early days of like really understanding like the pervasiveness of diet culture and really being you guys were so gracious to really work on being like hyper vigilant about like
but
helping
I also
with that.
think it was just a good practices for anybody to have in a group of just being like, hey, we don't like negative self-talk, and that doesn't mean you can't like make a joke about something silly that happened.
And also, if you are like, having a bad day,
we'll talk about it.
You can say that. Let me be clear. You can express that, but we're going to talk about it. If you do,
it. Can't just make it as a little joke. So I think that was all very helpful. I think we're going to talk about other steps and like questions to ask, but the care sheet really covered a lot of it. Like the crisis plan really answered a lot of questions of like, what can I do to be there for you? Well, here's a step-by-step plan.
At any level, it doesn't have to be as heavy feeling as a crisis plan, but at any level, wherever a friend is at in terms of giving them support and also not feeling too overwhelmed yourself as a support person, just having a conversation of, hey, like, when you are struggling, what are actual actionable things that I can do to help you feel better? And a lot of times Maddie has asked me this before, and I've been like, I actually don't fully know right now, but I'm going to think on it. And that was good enough for me to think on it too. But like Maddie found very creative ways throughout recovery to like do it, to encourage me in a way that was so like her. Like she would draw me these cartoons. I have one of them, but she would draw me these cartoons, like playing cards of my food, so I could like earn them as I was trying different like fear foods, which was adorable.
I also in college would draw little foods to encourage her to eat. It just kind of being like, it would be a donut.
Well,
like,
I think these are like from, I think I told people in treatment about it, and so we started making them for other foods. But they're like, whoa. But this was my recovery notebook. This was
me pointing as if you guys aren't. Look, where else would you be looking?
But look, there's like chicken nuggets and pancakes, and so it's like trading cards for food items. But then the other one was, oh my goodness,
there's so many papers falling out.
Yeah, just like
she's been lived in.
Yeah, this journal.
But that was something I did in college of drawing little foods, because I wasn't living with you at the time, so it felt like that was kind of the only, and I didn't have like money to be buying. It was the only support I could offer was drawing on index 6x4 index cards that I had bought for school for no reason.
Look at this little alien character she did. She gave me these little cartoons. Introducing, he tries new things, he makes friends, he gives encouragements, and he only has 2 fingers, so it's hard to tell the difference between a thumbs up and a middle finger. She drew me these little guys to encourage me. But like that was just such a it was such a small token that was just like an atom bomb to whatever, like those things in terms of the isolation or whatever, having something tangible like that like my pal had spent like even just like minutes working on, like really just, you're like, I spent hours.
Well, can I say too, that was one of the first times I really, I mean, again, when I started doing it in college, was one of the first times I really started like doodling. Like I wasn't a huge doodler. Like I doodled random stuff, but not really cartoons. And so it was like a fun, I don't know, it just is so beautiful that even through this, your creativity was still so inspiring to me, and like wanting to give that back to you was so fulfilling to me in a way of getting to like make these little cartoons for my friend who I knew was going to appreciate them.
Yeah.
It was very fulfilling.
Or even like having a designated comfort show. People like, everybody has that show that it's just like you put it on and it's just, mine is like Broad City.
Yeah.
What's yours? What's your like?
I mean, I think growing up it was definitely The Office, but then I think I got pretty officed out because I watched it like when it aired and then like kind of again. I don't know. I think I just don't like to settle into one. I think my comfort show is trying something new.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I feel like Detroiters is both of our comfort
Detroiters,
show.
yeah.
You put that show on, that's like our Cocomelon.
Yeah.
Detroiters with Tim
It is
Robinson
like a
and Sam
little-
Richardson, that is our Cocomelon.
That's our drug.
We
Back
are
to The Office.
pressed against the television, salivating on it. We
Yeah.
love it so much. But having like just again having those conversations where you can just be like, what are things I can just, if your friend is suddenly struggling, it's like, oh, I can just go ahead, I'll just grab the remote and put it on. I won't say anything. I'll just put it on the show.
And
or,
I was gonna say, like, I think a huge stressor for somebody who might be a support person is trying to think of the ways, trying to guess the ways that you can support your person, and trying to like kind of like racking your brain and spending all your mental energy being like, how can I make them feel better? Like, how can I relieve their pain? But I think that it's just ask, like, you already are at that level with them, so just asking and takes so much mental strain of being like, how do I plan, how do I care for them best, when it's like, here's what they've told me, here is the ABC on how I can most efficiently be there for them, support them, which I think was one of the questions I have for you in this of what was the thing, and it doesn't have to be something that I did, that made you feel most supported when you came out of treatment by other people? Like, what was something that people could do for you? Or
I think like truly one of the most tangible things was like with this in particular, it was like the meal times, just like eating together, or even just there were certain points where like Maddie and I would send each other pictures of our meals, like back and forth, just like, hey, this is what I'm eating, like almost like doing like an Instagram picture of our food. But like in terms of just vibe wise, I really think that it was the distraction is just feels like it's too frivolous to say, but it was just that ability to be like, to still be ourselves. Like, it still felt really normal.
Yeah, it felt like it was less of a distraction and more getting back to the status quo. Like,
it was a reminder of
the eating disorder is the distraction.
Yeah.
Like, this is life.
Yeah.
And like getting back to living, I think was such a essential part for even just our relationship of being like, this is the same.
Yeah. And even just like, again, having like people around. It wasn't even just because in those times, a lot of times I was like, really, I mean, I had like no energy, nothing. And it was just like,
but you were also pretty heavily medicated. Yeah, that's true. So I want to give you credit there of like, but also the mental work that you were having to do is exhausting.
Yeah. So I think like just being there in general and like actually being there, like you really like when Maddie is somewhere, she is there. Wherever Maddie is, Maddie is there.
The party is here.
But there was something, we mentioned it earlier. So I get back from treatment, and that's kind of where this story I mean, again, recovery is not linear. Like, it was very much so ups and downs. And, like, I think one thing that I remember thinking at the beginning of treatment was I would hear other people talk about recovery, and I would get so, like this pit of like despair in my stomach, because people would say like, you know, I've been in recovery for X amount of years and I still struggle every day. And I remember just being like, why am I even trying if they're still like, so like, if there are these people that have really been at it and they are still struggling. And I think like it, for me, I just like am so blown away by how it's good for me sometimes to remember how all consuming it was, because it is like genuinely, I hate to be that person that is like, it just does get better, but it just like does over consistent time
and effort
and like also continuing to be like, it is a choice that has to be made, but the choice just like sooner or later does start to feel more like a habit, and then it just becomes a part of you, which I think has been really cool. But, and that's not to say that there's not still like struggles, but I can confidently, like, I can very confidently say like, I am like firmly planted, like I am in recovery. So like, I just want to say, if anybody is like thinking like, you know, it is a lifelong decision to be made. However, like progress and very real progress like can be made, and like recovery is very much so possible. And I have my little recovery tattoo on my wrist. I got this with my friend from treatment, MJ.
She's so beautiful. She's so like
But it is so funny because people either like know the NEDA tattoo or they don't. So when they ask, I'm always like, I don't want to like drop a bomb on somebody.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'll be like, it's like a self-love thing.
Yeah.
But then other times I'll just be like, it's a symbol of recovery from an eating disorder, and I'll just kind of like drop that.
Yeah.
And you know,
and I think it's good too, because again, we have a silly story coming, but I do think we should maybe
do a quick
some of the quick plugs of which Project Heal had on their website, of some of the stats of 30 million Americans.
Yeah, it's just the American.
Struggle with an eating disorder, but only, I think it said 20% of them are actually able to get treated for it.
Yeah,
which means 24 million people. That's only people who've been diagnosed with it. So I think eating disorders are something that are so easy to fly under the radar because it doesn't have one look. It doesn't have one type that it goes for. It can affect anybody.
And in terms of the people that do get diagnosed, like it is just, the barrier to treatment is really difficult, because especially if somebody has anorexia, there is a perception of that fat people can't be anorexic, and it's just like it's simply untrue.
So much misinformation.
It's called atypical anorexia, but like the problem is, like, I think people really need to understand how slippery of a slope it is, and that's like the soapbox that I'm always going to hop up on, is like the, you know, it is okay to want to be the best version of yourself, and to like want to take care of your body, and to, you know, want to, you know, see something and be like, I want to improve it. But if what you are wanting to improve is purely physical, it's never going to actually like satiate that. It just won't. And in culture, we ebb and we flow in terms of like beauty standards. That's very prevalent, but like everything is very much so built against you feeling good about yourself. And so it is just such a slippery slope, and this is the second deadliest mental illness, right behind
opioid addiction.
Yeah.
So that's how serious. And again, it's people might be like, whoa, I've never heard of somebody dying of an eating disorder, but it is similar to the
you
COVID
just don't
thing,
know,
where it's like somebody died of pneumonia because they got COVID. Like it's the piling on of it can fail so many of your organs.
Yeah.
It leads to your problems all over you.
Yeah. And if that doesn't scare you, I mean, the water retention with bulimia, come on.
Come on, Church.
Come on, Church.
Doing that?
Come on.
You don't
I called them my bully cheeks, which is, you know, do with that what you will. Somebody's like, that's really triggering. I'm like, actually, I'm so sorry. That's just what I called them.
We were just
for myself.
getting through it.
But like, it's not going to give you what you want. And also, like, truly, just with like young girls and women in particular, and boys, like, this is very real for boys.
I think now they said that there's more boys with eating disorders than
diagnosed.
ever before, because again, I think there is less safe spaces for men to.
Don't get me started on the wrestling culture of cutting weight and everything like that, because even if you don't have an eating disorder, there are so many eating disorder behaviors that have been accepted by culture, because
patterns
too. Like I mentioned it earlier offhandedly, but like a lot of the stuff with like intermittent fasting and like people just choosing to cut out food groups just because they heard that it's bad. And it's just, understand your own body, do what feels right for you. And like this thing that you try to control is really only going to end up controlling you. And so I just like, that's my soapbox, but also just it wreaks havoc on your body too.
Yeah, like it can cause damage everywhere.
Every time I was in the dentist chair, I'm sweating bullets.
Because they know.
Oh, my mouth's open.
They know.
Your dentist, get this. If you're trying to hide it or whatever, your dentist knows. Your dentist knows, yeah. Yeah, there's a reason the enamel on the back of your teeth is looking like that.
So I think like that's our kind of, there might be more to eating disorders than you realize, and you might have a lot of questions surrounding to like how people get into them, because like we said, it's not, a lot of times it's not really even about the food, it's about other stuff that's going on in, you know, someone's head.
It can be really, I know that for a lot of young people, it is really common. Like you start seeing it in high school, like middle school and high school and stuff, and that can be really scary. And that's where, again, we said it at the beginning, and I don't even know if we have anybody under the age of 18, but like it is a medical thing, and like that is why you need to bring an adult into it. Even if you're like, my friend would be so mad at me, whatever. I don't know that I have ever. I've never looked back in retrospect at a friend stepping up to me on behalf of myself with anything other than gratitude. So like, even if your friend were to be upset then or whatever that you told a guidance counselor or something, it is worth it in the long run.
Just feel that weight does not need to be on you.
Yes.
You are a child, and even if you're an adult and you're not a medical professional, like, do not take that on.
Yeah. But we will have
yourself.
links below. You can go to Project Heal. I think it's projectheal.com or .org. But either way, we'll find the links and we'll be sharing them. Also for the National Eating Disorder Association, they have a lot of like information, just research. I know that like my mom like really like appreciated the NEDA website when she was like,
really helpful
when everything was
to
first
learn
happening. Yeah.
about it.
So, you know, you can check out all those resources, and we might do something with our merch or something for one of those. But we did
promise you a little treat. So you might have remembered at the beginning of this, we said that this was year 1, so we were living with Bree, Papa. We did not know her as Papa at that time. We weren't at Papa level. But she was gone for work the whole time.
And there was no reason to tell her, so we hadn't.
Until, I would honestly say a few months later. Because she was, like, in and out for a couple months.
Wasn't it at our next apartment that she found out when we weren't living with her anymore?
No, because it was...
Yeah. Okay.
Then may I tell the story?
Yes.
I mean, we tell the story?
You tell.
I more mean, like, are we allowed to tell the story? So...
We had a friend, too, that we realized we had forgotten to inform. And
Yeah,
so he
we
thought
did.
I was somewhere else. And I went to take a call from my mom and dad. And it was like, he was like, weren't you just with them for like 6 weeks? And we were like, oh,
we forgot to say, hey, real quick.
we forgot
buddy.
to tell Ben.
Hey, real quick, Ben. You should Melson was that treatment. Okay.
I was about 15 minutes
okay.
away.
He was like, sounds good.
Cool.
Easy conversation. Bree, though, because we lived with her, had come home and was rushing and was trying to make a meal at one point, and she couldn't find any of the knives. And so she was like, hey, where are the knives? I think she came to my room or she texted me, and I had to kind of quickly be like, hey, just we can't have any knives just out. So if you want a knife, you have to go to see Jillian, and she will show you where the knives are, because they're in an undisclosed location. Bree has to go into her long room, walk all the way down to Jillian, say, may I have a knife? Jillian has to go to her closet where the knives are in a bag with all of the medication in her house. Jillian like a drug dealer in her own home. So that's how Bree found out about that. And then I think it was quite later, I think that's when we had moved, that she found out about treatment.
Yeah, because we said something like, oh yeah, when Millicent was out of town, we had like quotation marks, and we said like out of town, and she goes, what was that? And we were like,
we had to be like,
when like the first year, and she was like, what are you talking about?
yeah, and we had to be like, oh my gosh, did we not tell you? She was like, no.
I was like, I was in rehab for an eating disorder.
Whoopsie.
Sorry about leaving that tidbit out. And she was like, oh, okay. So that was how we told Papa. But your reward for making it this far. Hey, way to go, you.
Hey,
guys.
Hey, we
everybody
made
take a deep
it.
breath. Hey,
We made
we're
it.
gonna be having our funsy little episodes for a while after this.
Yeah. We're gonna be chilling. But that was just the funny conclusion to that story. So we have decided to give you a treat, which is we got a pretty. Oh wait, should we do the challenge first?
Oh yeah.
Challenge real quick.
Challenge
which we've
real
kind of
quick.
been talking about it. Is if you feel like a friend you want them to open up to you, or you're maybe feeling like they're not opening up to you and they should be the one to take that leap. Be vulnerable with them first. So maybe there's something that you want to talk about, or even just it doesn't have to be that heavy. It could just be generally like, man, I've been really stressed out with work lately, and I've been trying to find a way to like have a better work-life balance. Even that opens up so many conversations with other people to feel like, hey, you've let your guard down and I'm safe to do that myself.
Yeah. Your challenge is to just open up in some way to someone.
Be
to a pal of
vulnerable.
yours. And to like, you're not doing it with the intention of like, oh, I want them to open up to me too. You're doing it just to like be like, hey,
to have that connection.
We have the kind of relationship where we can be honest about where we're at right now. And just by opening that door, it really does like down the line, it is going to
Makes it a
help
lot
you out
easier.
Because if you're going through something, you've already crossed that
established,
threshold.
you've already built
like
those bridges.
have that, or maybe you have something now that you are like, I just like feel like it would be useful to me to like have somebody else just be aware of this.
Yeah.
And they don't have to do anything with it, but I just want to be able to like tell them this and like, you know, just so that's your challenge is to bring something to the light.
And if they choose to share with you, like, take that. Amazing. Beautiful.
Fantastic.
That's why we live.
That's why we're here.
We have a treat for you now.
Sorry, we've really been yanking you
Sorry,
around.
we rolled you back.
And it's a quick one, but it's
quick.
pretty straightforward.
We got a text.
Papa has been working. Papa has been
Papa on the set.
Papa on the set all day. So we get a text that says, based on I just had the most embarrassing Papa plot
Of all time,
which is a
which we went
huge statement.
There's been a lot of Papa plots that are
massive statement. So she sends us a photo. We're not going to show. She sends us a photo and she says, based on this picture, what do you think I did in front of an entire crew
that was actively filming?
Like they were rolling, meaning everybody is completely silent on this set.
Nothing is happening.
Silent. It is moments before everything is about to start happening, but everybody's holding and quiet.
She said, what do you think happened?
She sends a photo.
Now I'll show the photo.
And
so go ahead and you can take maybe your guess. This is like, isn't this literally an America's Funniest Home Video like challenge where they'll be like head, nuts, or like butt? It'll be like, where are they gonna get hit?
I don't know, but I want to start playing that.
For Papa plot. Do you guys think it is involving the chairs that are over here, the basketball hoop that are over here, or should we even say it?
It's a photo of.
I'm showing them the photo.
Okay. For our audio listeners, what you are looking at is a photo of a backyard.
Mm-hmm. From inside.
However, what is separating the inside from the outside is a glass door.
Yeah, sorry, reveal. That was the right answer was the glass door. Which you can't see from this
you
photo.
really can't see it.
It really does not look like there's a glass door.
Bree slam.
Because it's one of those floor-to-ceiling ones. Like
the camera is rolling. Papa realizes that she needs to grab something. It's outside.
The director asks for a different cup. And Bree says, I can run and grab it, but I have to get it outside. And he goes, oh, yeah, we can wait. Still rolling.
Everybody's still quiet.
Everybody's quiet. Bree goes, Bree's got hustle. Yeah. Papa is a worker.
I've worked with Papa before. It's amazing.
She works. So she is hustling. She got a little bit of jog. Forward momentum. When you don't think something is there, you're going forward. You're walking forward. Quiet set. Quiet on set. Boom! Bree collides so hard with the glass door. She stumbles backwards, falls onto her butt, has to recalibrate. I know that anybody on any side, because it's glass, could see her face in that moment was scared. I know that she did not hide the fact that she was shocked.
She said that she hit her forehead and her knee.
Boom, boom.
And so then she fell backwards. And then they were still rolling those. So she got up and everybody was like, are you okay? And she got up. She was like, no, I'm fine. So then she like
she said she had to crawl away at first. Guys, the image of Bree
and she said that
bouncing back from a glass door and then having to crawl off a currently hot set.
She said that she tried like making jokes about it throughout the day,
and like that was crazy.
And everybody kept literally going, "Yeah, are you okay?" Like people
was letting her joke about it because she said another guy did it too earlier in the day. So she should have known. She was also the one who had just cleaned the window.
Yeah, she said, no, it was clean. I know because I did it. We said, you did it?
We said, okay, so it's getting harder to feel bad for you. So she was like, people would joke about, I don't know, John, who hit the door. And she would be like, and then she would try and joke about herself hitting it. And people would be like, are you sure you shouldn't sit down? She'd be like, I'm fine. She had a beanie on. Thank God for the beanies.
Thank God for the beanie.
Thank God for the beanie. But that was just a delightful Papa plot.
It's just a quick one, but it's yours. Pals, write into heytherepals.com. Check out the merch.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram.
At Won't You Be My Pal.
Check out YouTube. At Won't You Be My Pal as well.
Hit up the At Won't You Be Your Pal. Just type in At Won't You Be Your Pal and see what comes up.
Yeah, see what happens. Should be, yeah.
Hopefully.
I think
we don't got Twitter, so.
Yeah. And thanks for listening.
I hope this was helpful.
Yeah.
Not too heavy. Let's have another. Should we have another? Wow. Now
All
you're
right.
ready to enter your day bigger and better than before. And no, next week probably gonna be crazy. No promises, but crazy up here at least.
Up here, it's nutty.
Naughty down.
All right, pals.
Bye. So long.
Pals. Oh.